Love the music, man. Like little
Yeah,
reggaeton
it's
going on.
little grooving this morning, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing spectacular, my man. It's we're enjoying the nice weather, as we always kind of say, and it's not always doom and gloom with everything that's kind of going on. So it's another day. It's Thursday. Where did the week go, my friend? Where did the week go?
Oh, the weeks are passing like a friggin' flash these days, man. It's crazy. And you know what? Here's the thing, right? I um, and I know some people might want to hang me for this, but who cares? Um, it's not all doom and gloom. Like it's not. I've got some customers that are just booming right now, and it's all about what you're in. You know what I mean? Like I'm in a lot of the housing sector and building market, and we're actually finding that the biggest issue now is the raw material. Like we were pumping out loads. Now everybody's like, "Holy crap, we don't have raw material." So it's like things are shifting. So if you're looking for that raw material and you need trucks to get it to where you need to go, it's not a question of how much. It's a question of when can you get it here. You know,
Mm,
you got 9 million bricks that you need to put out this month, and you got raw material for four. You need 5 million bricks of raw material. Somebody says, I got raw material, like get it here now. Like
yeah, I
there's
got
huge
you.
opportunity. I was talking to Nicole yesterday from Candor, and she's getting calls for left, right, and center from people on contingency because they're expedite. Right. So things happen. We're
Mm,
running out of product, not just like not even just this yellow thing or anything like that. It's like we're running out of product and we're going to get to a point where we're behind the eight ball and we got to catch up. Are you ready to support us? And they're like,
yeah.
yeah, 100%. So there's, I don't know. Um, I tend to look at it. If you follow any of the, you know, major players in any business,
Hmm.
these are the times when billions are made,
Oh,
like
100%, brother.
billions.
100%. 100 a recession, everything like that. And Alex Good Energy put out something that really changed my life a couple years ago when he says, like, if you operate in your season, this can be your life forever. So you imagine that. I want to go back to that Nicole thing, right? Because Nicole and Candor, they're very known for a great company for expedite. She's got companies calling her because they know the word of mouth. I always see John Brewer always, and you see all the amazing posts and all the panels. So they're like, okay, well, let's give them a call. Maybe the customers had them on a Rolodex and it was like, maybe I'll get to Nicole one day. And then when things like this happen, it's just like, okay, it's time to operate. It's time to go
Yeah.
to work. Give me that ball and let me run that into the end zone. So I love it. I love it. I don't like I said, even when a little bit controversial on Monday when I said I don't do too much research until I get a discovery call. I don't do too much research on what's kind of really going, especially what's kind of going on in the US with companies shutting down. I know everyone kind of made a big deal with like Uber, and I'm like, Uber's still around, Uber Freight. I remember those guys are like, I remember when I was on their marketplace, they were trying to get carriers to go for 50 cents a mile, to
Yeah.
take like beer
Yeah.
bottles. So I'm like, transplace, all that stuff. So to each their own, my man. But that's not what today is about, Daniel. What is today? Thursday? What are we talking
Well,
about?
it kind of filters in a little bit, right? Because the fear and self-doubt that comes with starting a business, the fear and self-doubt that comes with being in sales in today's economy, right? Like, I mean, I think it is a little bit intertwined because if you're looking at it, and let's say hypothetically, you're saying, you're debating right now at this moment, you're saying, should I join that company and be on commission? Right?
Mm,
Because in all honesty, we're talking to the commission sales rep that runs their own business inside of company. If you're being paid salary, you don't run your own business inside of company. You work for someone. If you're on commission, you run your business. You are the CEO. You are the founder of that business inside that corporate umbrella, right? You're
mhm.
using their money to fund your business. Great model. One of the best model on the earth, if you ask me, because commission salespeople, you can get off a bus anywhere in the world with $10 in your pocket and within weeks make thousands. Like, think about it, right? I mean, it's the only job in the world that you can do that, right? I think. Maybe a lawyer, I don't know. But for me, commission salespeople are what make the world go round, right? They are the heart of the economy.
Yeah.
And so I look at it and I say, you know, would it be a scary time to start a business right now? And a lot of people might say, yeah, like really scary, like unbelievably scary. And you know what, Ryan? I have fear and self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
I wake up some mornings and I'm like, is this really? And then I have to stop myself because I sent you a couple of videos and one that will play in the next week or so talks about dominoes. And you build all these dominoes up, and one bad thought can knock the whole stack down. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because when I was going through all my treatment, I started to have those thoughts. And they called the expression they used was an escalator thought. So you have one thought which leads to a second bad thought, to a third bad thought, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you've convinced yourself like it's over, like life as we know it is over. And this is what a lot of people went through during COVID and everything. And it's like, but in business, it's a real fear, because if you work for a company now where you're getting a salary and you're debating about going on commission, there's that fear of what if I don't make those numbers and I can't pay my bills, and like, I mean, it's real. But also it's imaginary. Yes. You know, have you ever in your career had those thoughts of, because you're commission, what if I was all my customers? You know, I had that early in my career. Like I was petrified, brother.
Yes.
Petrified when I first started in commission of, okay, yeah, I made money this month, but what if I don't make any money next month? Yeah. And it's like, and then you're hoarding, and you're like, you know, yeah, no, you go out for dinner and you're like, dude, I forgot my wallet.
Yeah, it's one of those, you know, we're gonna have KFC tonight, you know, that's
So it's interesting because today we're going to talk about that fear and doubt when starting a business, and we're going to apply it to growing a business. You know, for lack of a better term, in a quote unquote downtime. And we've got a couple of clips that we think you're going to absolutely love. So why don't we start with your clip, buddy? I haven't seen it yet. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Unless you want to set it up, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, let's set it up. Well, a couple things you touched on there I want to talk about before we kind of get into the video. So, I was, for the longest time, I was a salaried rep, and then and this is when you played the role of coach in my life. You know, coach and mentor. We get together every week and we go through the numbers, and you're like, Ryan, why aren't you on commission yet? Every single month, you basically told me, hey, pull that button. I was
harassing you hard.
You were literally. I'd be like, hey, bro, what's going on? How's your day going off? He'd be like, did you go to commission yet? You know, that was the response that it was. And I was like, shoot, man. And I'm not a person
to a point where you didn't want to talk to me just because.
Oh, 100%. I just put my phone down. I put my phone down because, like, I didn't want to lie to you. But, you know, it was one of those things where it's like, you know, it was so needed. It was so needed for me. And I love the company that I work with. They are a great company. But I've learned so much kind of like being a business within a business, being an entrepreneur. We talk about. So the clip today, I actually talked about this. I either think it was yesterday. No, yesterday was Day, either Tuesday or Monday. I think it was Tuesday. I mentioned this, but it's funny because the reason why I'm playing this is when you do something so well, whatever the impact you have on somebody, this video that we're about to show is a quote from somebody else, you know? So this is another podcast, and the podcast was talking to David Goggins, and he's bringing up somebody else. So that's why I really enjoyed that it was somebody else and it wasn't coming from the horse's mouth. So let's put this bad boy in and let's see what everybody's thoughts are.
There's this quote from one of my friends, Alex Hormozy, that says, "You don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Outwork your self-doubt."
Yes. That's
nailed.
Nailed.
Completely nailed.
Yes.
There we go. So I talked about this earlier this week was, you don't have to be like doing all the meditation or doing the morning routines or the affirmations. Once you create a stack of like, you're undeniable, that your point that you are so good in your craft. And that's only by practicing, by sucking, by getting to there, going for the nose, going for everything like that. And I think for me, as everybody knows, I really love Alex Ramosi and I'll shout that from the rooftops. But, I think instead of for me listening to different people and their ideologies and things like that, it's great, but I really love when I'm able to like listen to like a couple people, a handful of people, and really take what they said. And I'll say this, like Hermosi's one, his wife Layla is one, Dan, you're one of them, Ed Milet is one of them, Damon, who's our great friend, Jay Shetty. I would say those top 6 for me. I make sure I don't miss a podcast, I don't miss anything that they talk about, any kind of YouTube video or anything like that, just because I feel like it's so weight bearing to my life. And it's not that I only found salespeople, and that's what I think the great mix of like self-doubt when it comes back to what he's saying here is that you outwork your self-doubt. Like I love hustle culture. I know some people are against it and things like that, but I thoroughly thrive from it, because when we kind of say in business and in life that you get lucky, what is it, the harder you work the luckier you get. I don't really believe that. I believe the harder you work, the more opportunities you open. Right. So it's like, hey, let's call it a spade. The person who makes 100 touches every single day for the next 6 months is going to beat that person who does 10 touches a day or does no touches a day. Even if they're doing 99, it's strictly a numbers game. Maybe their messaging might be a little bit different and things like that, because I've seen other people being like, hey, I made like 5 calls and I've closed all 5. Well, that comes with experience. You had to make those 100 calls at some point in your career. I would hope so. But for me in my life, when it comes to like self-doubt, Alex Ramosi saying there is like, I want to be so good that anytime a thought comes into my head, Dan, that am I worthy enough? And I think that's the one question that I feel all kind of plays us. Am I worthy enough, or that imposter syndrome? Like for me, when I look at my life around me, like I'm blessed. And sometimes I think about it, do I really deserve this? But then I was like, you know what? I worked hard for this. My wife worked hard for this, everything like that. So enough of my spiel there. What did you think of that? So that was, I don't know who the podcaster is, but that was David Goggins, the great David Goggins. Definitely check out his books. He's a beast.
Yeah, I mean, You Can't Hurt Me is an amazing book. I read it when I was going through my treatment, and just an unbelievable book. And if you get the audiobook version, it's actually really cool because he reads it and kind of shares a story on the chapter, and it's like the audiobook is like of You Can't Hurt Me is really like a dual action book where it's him and he's saying, yeah, man, I remember this story also, and this is kind of the thought process. So it's really cool, the audiobook. Yeah,
I'm gonna grab an Audible. For everybody's out there, Audible's giving like a 3-month promo for all like Prime members, so you get 3 months free. So yeah, that's gonna be one of the books I'm gonna go grab. That's awesome.
Yeah, you grab it. I mean, I'm an Audible member. I get a credit every month. I get a book every month as a treat for myself. And here's the thing. It reminds me of a quote I heard, got to be 3 decades ago. I remember being 16 or 17, and Steve Martin was on, it was like Entertainment Tonight or something. And the interviewer said to him, what advice do you have for young people coming into Hollywood? He said, be so good they can't ignore you.
Love it.
Right? And that has stuck with me throughout my entire life. And I mean, I'm talking when I'm buffing pewter keychains on night shift, like it just kept going, be so good. And I would buff, and I know it might sound crazy to some people, but like I'd buff this keychain till it was the shiniest. And I don't know if any of the top brass ever saw it, but for me, when I walked out of my job at 13, 14 years old, I felt fulfilled.
Yes.
When I got into logistics, when I got into construction, like I did for about a year, I did industrial and residential construction, and meticulous with the jackhammer to create the edges. And they're like, no, don't worry too much about it because we're going to saw it off. But I didn't want those, like it was that be so good they cannot ignore you kind of mentality in my head, which led into all the books, the mindset, the Bob Proctors of the world, all these people that I listened to, the Wayne Dyers and all that kind of stuff, which led right into that. And, it's interesting because outworking your self-doubt takes a shitload of brain power, and it takes a shitload of determination and desire, and that brings us back to why we're doing it.
Mhm.
You know, the person out there that says they never doubt themselves, I think are liars.
100%.
Personally,
I think the
um, everybody has a
really,
doubt.
yeah.
It's about how long it stays in your head and what you do about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I remember sitting down with Bob Proctor. I said, you know, because this was my big thing when I was starting my logistics company. And, you know, Bob Proctor, one of the key people in the world when it comes to visualization
Yeah.
and, you know, attracting the law of attraction and, you know, the secret and all this kind of stuff. And he said, Dan, everyone has self doubt. He goes,
Yes.
everyone, whether I don't care what part of your life it is, maybe some people don't have it in business, but some people have it in life. He
Yes.
says, um, I've created multiple $1 million companies and I still sit on the end of my bed scared when an idea comes in my head. And he goes, and when I get scared, I know it's the right idea.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow. And he goes, and the reason why is I'm pushing myself to become and be that person at a higher awareness,
Yes.
pushing myself high. And then of course he's, you know, the infamous, if you put on, you know, a country music station on the radio, don't expect to hear rock and roll. So when you're on this level of vibration, don't expect to be on this level. It's only when you move up to that next level of vibration, that next level of understanding, awareness, and all that, can you realize what the next capable step you have is. And I
Mhm.
think, Ryan, the big gap is moving to that next step because we get to a certain level and we're like, you know what, we're making 100 grand a year. We're like, I know I can make, but somebody says, okay, well, let's make 1 million a year. It's like
10 times.
10
Yeah.
times, really?
I
Like,
just made 100 grand.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. But it's then you make 200. Then it's like, okay, to get to 200, I know how to do that. So
Yes.
that self doubt of if you were to start from scratch, and this is the reason why I gave away my business 3 times in my career. I gave away all of my business 3 times and I started from scratch, even at the same company. I just said, divvy up my accounts. I want to start from scratch. I'm like, why would you do that? It's because I want to prove to myself my sales training, my strategies. Because if I can't prove it to myself, how in the hell can I teach other people it?
There we go.
It's not going to happen. But I also wanted to conquer that self doubt. Like I lived with self doubt most of my life because I have a grade 9 education. I was told all through my childhood, you need an education to become anything in life. Like from my parents, from everyone around me, from my uncles, from everyone I knew. It was like, so in my head, I'm like, I can't make it in life. I don't have an education. I'm a grade 9 dropout.
Yeah.
Like that lives with you. So I had to overcome that. And it's this the gap jumping. When we jump that gap to a new level of awareness, anything below us, there's no self-doubt. But
Hmm.
if you've not started a new business, there's huge self-doubt. If you've not been on commission and realize it's the most lucrative position in the world, there's massive self-doubt because there's no security, none,
Yeah. Yeah.
except the security you bring to the table for yourself. Be so good they can't ignore you.
And I love that so much. And as you're kind of talking here, Dan, I want the audience to understand as well. Like, we're not just talking, this is business focused, but everything we do in life is self doubt there, right? So, like, let me give you a great example here. Like, my wife and I, we're big breakfast people. Like, on the weekends, like, our thing that we love to do is like, we love to go for breakfast. And we have like our two spots that, like, we go, we know the waitresses, like, we haven't got to the point yet where they're like, we walk in and be like, oh, you'll have the regular today. No, but we've got to the point that we go and we have fun. But even self-doubt was like, and I know it's so simple, but it's just like, hey, do you want to try something brand new? Do you want to go to a different place? And I don't want to say it's like necessarily self-doubt itself, but there is a doubt there. Like, why
Yeah.
would, if I have everything here looking so good? And I think for business, you're talking about, hey, I make 100K a month, I'm sorry, a year, and go to 1 million. Hey, if my business is doing so well, why do I want to kind of go and try something new? And maybe the eggs might be burnt, or like the coffee won't taste as good. So for myself, I relate this to going to like Toastmasters or trying different things in your life. That first time you go to the meeting, you're going to have that self-doubt. There's so many times that I've heard people say the same exact story where they're like, hey, I drove to a place and I sat in my car prepping myself to go do this. Right? It was
Yeah.
just like, okay, let me turn on my favorite song, or let me wait 10 or 15 minutes rather than park the car, turn it off, get off and go. Right. So I think like when you were talking about like self-doubt and you were kind of mentioning like starting your own business and stuff like that, you got to look around like your circle as well. Is your circle feeding you in? Is your inner circle, yes people? And I think that's what actually makes your self-doubt even worse, because you think you're invincible at everything, because everyone keeps like, yeah, bro, you're the best, you're the greatest at everything, you got it, I wish I had your strength, all that stuff. Meanwhile, in the background, they're like, it's just a regular thing. And I think when you have somebody, an accountability partner, whether it be your spouse or be a good friend, your coach, or anything like that, you kind of work through your own self-doubt. And I think, but when we get onto your next clip here, I think it's important that if you are in sales, if you consider yourself a true salesperson, you don't really need to be really reading sales books. There's so many out there, but I think studying human psychology is one of the best things, and
way
understanding
more
how
important.
people, way more important, Van. So I know we have your clip if you want to go ahead and set that bad boy up.
Yeah, I'd actually just like to play with this for a minute, Ryan, if you can. I know we're running short of time, but
let's do it.
I was watching when we were preparing for these clips today, right? Obviously, you type in self-doubt in business in YouTube, and holy shit, like what comes up is crazy. I watched one from Gary Vee, and he said, they said, how do you deal with self-doubt when starting a business? And he says, well, I don't have self-doubt in business. He goes, but I have self-doubt in many other areas of my life. He goes, it's just one thing, like in business. He goes, I don't really think in that manner. I try things, they fail. I'm like, okay, it didn't work, let's move on. But he says in other areas of my life, huge self-doubt. He says, and one thing that I've realized, and it's interesting because it kind of touched me, and I haven't really had enough time to think about it, but I wanted to share it. He says, a lot of self-doubt comes in because we shit talk too much. He goes, you're a sales guy, and we're, I'm looking obviously for a clip for this show. He says, you're a sales guy and you shit talk that you're going to be the number one in the company. And all of a sudden you realize you're not getting there, and the self-doubt kicks in because now everyone else is going to now shit kick you for being that guy. And I was like, I don't know necessarily that I agree with it, which is why I didn't really pick the clip. It was interesting to hear his philosophy on it. So everyone's going to have a different philosophy on self-doubt, right? He believes that it was like we kind of created ourselves by talking ourselves up to other people. And then we have to live up to what we talked about to other people. And I don't know, I find when I have conversations with other people and they say, Dan, what's your plan? I say, the next year of my life, I'm going to conquer what I did over the last 20 years. And I don't for a second disbelieve it. So, and it's that inner drive inside of me that wants to do it. It's not when you go through something like what I went through, your entire perspective of life changes, right? And it's like I'm no longer going to sit back. And I always, for years, knew there was another level, probably 5 more levels inside of me. But when you're doing like 2.86 million in GP, it's a pretty decent level. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, how do you get to the 10 million? And people might be sitting there in logistics right now listening to this going, 10 million? Yeah. How do you make $3 million in your jeans at 30% commission a year? Like, that's the question. And that's what I'm looking to explore. And it's so the self-doubt that comes into that is, kind of like the 4-minute mile effect. It's never been done or has been done. It has been done. Okay, if one person's done it, we can do it. And let me share with you, all you guys out there in logistics on commission or just looking to start in commission, it's been done.
Yes.
You can do it.
Yeah.
It's about your dedication. And there's going to be doubt. There's going to be fear. There's going to be times when you're sitting there in your hands over your phone and you're almost shaking. You're hesitating. You're procrastinating to pick up. But like that first clip was, work through that. Just pick it up. Like, now, do it. And that's why, Ryan, when you said, Dan, I harassed you so much because, brother, I believed the life that you would have on commission 50 times the life you had when you were salaried.
Yeah.
Because of your work ethic, because of what you do, because of the value you bring to the table with every interaction, I knew your life in every aspect would be so much. But I mean, imagine right now, we're doing a show, you're on salary. Eventually your company's I don't care how good they are, they're coming to you and saying, hey, whoa, hold on here. You're on my dime and you're on a show.
Yeah.
It always happens in the end, always. But now you're doing large numbers, you're serving massive amounts of customers, and you're happy.
Yeah.
And, you think about your life now compared to then, and it's totally different. Ryan is like, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did last month if you were on salary,
Hmm.
right? Like, you're free. And when I say, obviously, freedom is the big goal for everyone, but what I'm saying, right? I don't want to babble, but I think I already did.
It's all good, man. I appreciate all that stuff. So you want to set up this clip before we get into it, or you just want to play it?
So I just want to play it. I think it's going to be powerful enough that it's going to kind of smoke everybody right in the face just by playing it.
All right, let's do it.
If you're constantly doubting yourself, I'm a psychologist, and here are 3 things I wish I knew when I was younger about self-doubt. Number 1, avoidance feeds self-doubt. And the more you avoid something, the more you will believe in that narrative that says, I would never have been good enough anyway. Number 2, tackling self-doubt demands courageous action in the direction of something that matters to you, something that feels so important that it overrides your need to feel comfortable and ready. Number 3, when you stop waiting for self-doubt to disappear, when you make this radical decision to let that self-doubt come along for the ride as you do that scary thing, it won't hold you back anymore.
Right? I mean, again, outwork your self-doubt, right? Just it's to me, it's like all the same in different language.
Yes.
It doesn't go away. And here's the thing, Ryan, one piece we didn't talk about that I think we should talk about. Let's say you've been in the industry for a while, right? A couple of years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, don't care. You stop selling for an extended period of time. That self-doubt comes back before you pick up the phone.
100%. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you gotta go back to the basics. And the one thing I love, I feel like the one sport that is more similar to sales is baseball. And the reason why I say baseball is that you look at guys. Okay, let's open up this here. So Alex Manoah, he's the starting pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. He's the top guy. He's their ace. Every baseball team has their ace. He's their ace. He is the guy. So on opening day, he's the guy. If you only got one game left, World Series, doesn't matter. You're putting Alex in. This year, Dan, they introduced to speed up the game that there's like a 30-second pitch count. So before
my
the
son
pitch,
was telling me about that.
yeah. So there's 30 seconds. So it's a faster game now. It's a way faster game. Alex hasn't been able to adjust to this. His condition has been off. He's been he's been horrible to the point that they actually had to send him down to the minor leagues, right? And you think about that in sales. I always like to expect to sales.
Really?
But here's the thing, though. They sent him to the minor leagues to Dunedin, our affiliate team in Florida. I think he pitched 3 games, and he still got lit up. But they called him up because of injuries and stuff like that, and he's just been dominating the last 3 starts that he's had. So what is it, Dan? Is it mechanics? Did he stop doing the things that the pre-game rituals? Like you're talking about guys who've been or ladies who've been in sales career and they just stopped making calls. Is it that they just completely stopped it? They stopped educating themselves. Did they get so caught up in me that, hey, I'm so great. I did 100K this month. Alex could be like, hey, I just signed that $40 million contract. I'm good. I'm ready to coast. Right. So I just think it's so important. And I do want to say something about that clip that I really loved. Shout out to the color coordination of all the books. It went from orange to red and blue and stuff. I love that stuff, by the way. But yeah, Dan, I really think that we can learn so many variables from baseball when a hitter goes on a slump. They're not hitting the ball that they used to. What do? Do they just stop and pout or stop? Do they stop hitting? Obviously not. They're going to start working with pitchers. They're going to work with coaches and coaching staff to get them back to where they need to. So I think it's amazing that you're bringing up this topic because I think there's so many variables, especially in baseball, when it comes to sports.
I think in everything, there's ups and downs.
Yes.
And I think the professionals know if I keep plugging, it'll turn around. It always does. I mean, listen, I made a pro sport, right? Reflect that back to salespeople. I've done very well for myself in other years. It's a bad year. It's a bad month. It's a bad week. I keep going, the results will come. And I think this is a big thing to tell ourselves when there's self-doubt. You're just coming into commission. Well, look at all these other people that are on commission doing really well.
Yeah.
They're no different than me. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. What's the difference between the top rep in your company. Any of you watching, listen, what's the difference between the top rep and yourself? Like, really think about this for a second. Because I look at it, and with the SaaS company we've launched and we're building, what's the difference between these 700 to $1 billion SaaS companies and us, the people that started them? Not much, if anything. Education, understanding, new level of awareness for the actual business,
Timing,
new level of awareness for sales and marketing, new level of awareness for what to say, how to say it, how to close on a demo as opposed to a sales call. It's all just education.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all just understanding. I'm going to learn into the person I want to become. I'm going to learn into the $1 million rep. I'm going to learn into the $2 million rep. I'm going to learn into the $3 million rep. And if we're not willing to, more self-doubt will come in because we'll feel like we're spinning our wheels. And that's when we go, forget it. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Right? I'll just go back to salary. And so, right, that mentality is everything. That mindset is everything. Like even your clip where he says, Alex Hormozi says, outwork your doubts. If you don't have the mindset to outwork your doubts, you're never going to outwork your doubts. Like ever, ever, ever. If you give into it, you're never going to outwork them. I love what Julie said, but she says, bring it along for the ride. Hey, self-doubt. Come on, let's show it. Let me show you what we can do.
Ride shotgun, because,
yeah. I love that. Ride shotgun. I love that. All right, my man. That was well, do you have anything to add to that before?
I want to add a couple things to that, because when we're talking about, so for me, when it comes to, and maybe we'll do this, Dan, what are your top 3 things whenever you have self-doubt? So I'll go first. The number one thing that I kind of do is that I acknowledge it, and then I find out why am I having this self-doubt? Is it because it's brand new to me? It's something I haven't done before. The second thing I do is control the controllables. What do I need to control? Like if it's sales, like let's say you're sitting at an empty pipeline right now, or you're having no sales or anything like that for this month. You're not going to get that back in one night. Just the same thing with losing weight or getting in shape and all that stuff. It takes controlling the controllables. So understand that you control the outputs, you don't control the inputs. And the third thing for me, Dan, you mentioned it here when you talk about leveling up with comparing the companies. I love this. Another Hormozi thing that he talks about is that there's S&P 500, the stock. That everybody can get, right? Like it's on the stock market. It's just a bunch of index stocks and things like that. And he says, before investing in like the S&P 500, stop that. Don't do that. Invest in SME 500. And what that means is that take tomorrow, start today. So invest in yourself, because when you level up your skills, that's when you could level up your investments, because obviously more money is going to be coming in, different things like that. So you got to look within. I think Cowboy did a great thing where he says, like, your proper mindset is everything. But yeah, Dan, I would love to hear your top 3 just for takeaways for the audience in terms of when that kind of comes into when it comes to collage to judgment.
Yeah. So it's kind of evolved over the years, but for right now, whenever it comes in, I realize there's something I don't know. So, and that's the only reason why the fear kicks in and that the self-doubt kicks in, because it's something I don't know. So I investigate that. Okay, why am I kind of same thing with you do? Okay, why am I feeling this? Okay, so it's something I've never done before. So let's research on how to do it. Right? Perfect example was when my pool was being built. The contractor walked out and it was the biggest mess of concrete you've ever seen in your life. I've never poured concrete in my life. And the guy that came over said, I will not, like the guy that does the skim coat, the final like touching coat where it's like not even a pebble is erased. He says, I'll do it, but you have to get it to this point, which was eons beyond where it was. I couldn't bring in cement trucks. There was all sorts of things I couldn't do because of where my septic bed is. The concrete had already been poured around the pool. I had to learn how to trowel concrete. We hand mixed 786 bags. So you look at that climb, but it was like, first thing, self-doubt. I don't know how to do concrete. Like, how do you get concrete to stick? Like, I don't know. So I YouTubed it. And for 5 hours, I watched videos on people doing concrete. And I said, all right, go out and try it.
Yeah.
And I did. And same thing in business. okay, it's something I don't know. So that's number one. First thing, as soon as that kind of fear, self-doubt kicks in, like, okay, it's something I don't know. I need to learn. So that's when I invest in myself to learn. Whether that be free courses, paid courses, whatever, I make sure I learn so I can get the confidence that I understand what I need to do in order to start. Number two is I set an action plan in place, and I take consistent action every day, all day long. I do my big 5 moves, which sit right here. Every day, every one of those is on my calendar, and I make sure I complete those tasks, those actionable items, with the best of my ability. And then number 3 for me is I consistently, as soon as I got my hands wrapped on that, I create a bigger goal that scares me again. And that's how I consistently live with self-doubt, but beat it all the time. Because it's one thing, again, and that's jumping those vibrational levels. That's jumping those levels of awareness, right? I want to consistently do that all day long, every day. Because I think being comfortable with the uncomfortable is the way that we grow in life. You know, right? I don't think you can grow without being uncomfortable. Like if you sit back as a sales rep, and if you have not been uncomfortable in the last 3 weeks, you're stagnant. If you've not been uncomfortable in the last 3 months, you're behind. If you've not been uncomfortable in the last 2 years, you're extinct.
Yeah.
And I hate to put it like that, but Ryan, it's the way it is. Like that uncomfortableness. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, like you can be confident and saying, okay, I'm uncomfortable right now, but I know I'm going to get through it. But it's that uncomfortable feeling. Yeah. You know, like I think even in our personal lives, you know, I look at some of the things my wife and I do, and sometimes I'm uncomfortable going into it, but it's like we're growing as a couple. Or some of the conversations over the years that you've had with your kids or your family members or your spouse or whatever. Like there's all these points in our life where we feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
But we walk into it. You know, I remember when I got diagnosed with cancer, I couldn't tell anybody. I would break down crying. Christine was really uncomfortable with telling people, but she stepped up to the plate. And it took me almost a month to step up to the plate before I could start telling people. Because I had such fear and such doubt about conquering it. And it's funny, Ryan, because in my head I'm going, you know, they picked the wrong mofo to mess with. But in my head I'm going, my brother died of this.
Yeah.
It took him. And that's a real fear. So I don't want to, and here's the thing, Ryan, and I think we should end with this, is we don't want to dismiss anyone out there that has fear of what's happening in the market today, that has fear of building a business, because it's real, and it's real to you. It's your perspective, and your perspective is everything. But just know that there's ways to overcome that. Everything in life, there's the way to overcome that. And it's going through that educational process. So I educated myself on cancer. I educated myself on my cancer. I educated myself on the survival rates, like all that. And as you start educating yourself, you surpass that fear.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, you know, I think when you're talking about that, you educate yourself. And I really like to attribute this to, like, you know, you're a soldier going into battlefield, right? You're getting your weapons, you know, you're getting your weapons of education, getting all that stuff, but you're just not going to go to like without, but like you're thinking, I'm going to war, you know, but I don't have any weapons. But you start leveling up and you're like, maybe I am pretty good at this. So it's just like, you know, you arm yourself in the best way to like face your fears, and it's going to happen. This is not a 1 episode conversation, you know, this is a conversation that we're all going to have this throughout the rest of our lives, and it's going to be really, really fun. And just while we understand that, you know, like self-doubt, to quote our amazing good friend Rico Rakowski, it's a choice, you know, so you can choose to either be really afraid and cow down and not do it, or you can choose to like accept it and work through it.
Yeah. You know, I met a guy a couple of years ago. He was in Afghanistan for the Canadian military. And he came out of like the whatever it is, the boot camp. Like, and within 3 weeks, he was in Afghanistan. And he says, you know, Dan, when I landed, you know, we're all on the plane and we're like, oh, we can't wait. You know, they're like, and he goes, but when you land and that door opens, the reality hits you. And he goes, in my first gunfight, he goes, Like, I swear to God, I probably crapped my drawers.
Yeah.
And he goes, but what do you do? What do you do? He goes, do you stay hiding or do you face your fear? He goes, because these are my brothers. He goes, so I see one of them hurt. I'm going to run out and grab him and get him to safety, whether it costs me my life or not. He's my brother. And so, and I'll share the points of this in a minute. And he says, and as I went through the first thing and then went back for a second tour, and like he goes, as I kept getting in gunfights, the gunfights are easier. I feared them less, because don't get me wrong, a bullet flies by your head and you hear the whip. He goes, it freaks you out. Don't get me wrong. He goes, but it's not like a paralyzing fear anymore. It's like a fear that triggers instincts and all that kind of stuff. And he's the only one that I've ever spoken to that's actually been in a full-on war besides my uncle. And my uncle didn't really talk about it too much. My uncle was in Rwanda. And he didn't really talk about the war too much because I think there was 13-year-olds with guns there, and I'm sure there was some things happening. But anyways, I bring that up because over time, by running into your fear, it becomes less of a fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we all know that, but I think sometimes we let that paralyze us. Like, so realizing it and understanding why is it. So if you're going to pick up the phone today and you hesitate, ask yourself why. Like, what is it that is stopping you from picking up that phone?
Yeah. And
then start digging into that, because that's where procrastination and then stagnancy comes in, right?
Yeah. There we go. That's amazing episode. Great conversation. Let's wrap it up on that one. I thought for everybody who's watching out there, you can definitely get some nuggets and some value from here. And you know what? Maybe we'll come up with something. I think maybe we'll put something on our website. Maybe just a template of like, your top 3 fears. Your self-doubt, something that you're kind of working on, and maybe we can do an episode sharing that. Maybe next Thursday we'll do that. But this is Sales Shatter Live. This is the logistics podcast where we aim to help 10,000 reps hit 1 million GP. We will be hitting our replay back on all the amazing audio resources that we have, which will be Spotify, Amazon, all the amazing. There we go. We got that going. And tomorrow is my favorite day of the week that I haven't been on in so long. So I'm looking forward to coming back and taking back my mic and my crown as game show host back on Fun Day Friday. There we go. So join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we'll be there again. Den, any final thoughts before we let everybody go today?
No, I've said enough, buddy. I've over talked already. So
it's all good. So we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Sorry, I think this is me, right? Yeah, this is me. Sorry, my job. I apologize.